How to write a personal nutrition program. What are the specific steps from gathering the information to creating the plan to the actual steps so the client can take it and achieve the goals? This is the topic of this video. I will walk you through every single step of the process, so at the end you have a clear idea how to approach writing a personal nutrition program. This video also has in the description below links to checklists that you can download and use in your first meeting and in every ongoing session, so you have a clear idea what you're doing and what your next steps are. If you like videos on motivational interviewing and on how to coach better in general, make sure that you subscribe. The key idea behind writing a personal nutrition program is that there's always room for fluidity and for change. So it starts with the first contact. Your client usually reach out to you saying they want to eat better, they want to lose weight, they want to get stronger. And at that moment, in your head, the program writing already starts. Once you have just a rough idea, you already start to plot out a program and a strategy how to reach this goal. And over time, when you get to know the client better, their strengths, their issues, their superpowers, their past experiences, you adapt and change the program slightly. So at the end, you have something that leads the client from where they are to where they want to be in the context of their life. And a very important first step is actually the sales conversation. When you have one-on-one sales conversations, you can learn a tremendous amount how to help this client and how their program looks like. And I have a video on super simple sales conversations that use all the coaching techniques that you already have. This process works just as well if you want to create group coaching or maybe a video course on a specific topic. The idea here is that instead of looking at a specific individual, you would look at your ideal client and go through this process as if your ideal client is a person that you're working with. A personal nutrition program is the roadmap for the client to reach success. The struggle for us is what data is relevant and what data is irrelevant. So what information do I need to inform my coaching approach and what information can I leave out? How does the strategy overall look like? So how can I get my client to lose weight? And then how do I apply this strategy in particular in the context of my client's life? In the end, every nutrition program looks at the manipulation of energy intake. If you want to lose weight, you want to reduce the energy intake. Generally speaking, it's grossly oversimplified. And if you want to gain weight, you have to eat more. Also, grossly oversimplified, but if we want to really break it down, it's the manipulation of energy intake. So the overall job of a nutrition program is to help our clients eat better. And better here is defined by the goal. They want to gain weight, it means we have to find strategies to eat more. And if they want to lose weight, we have to find strategies so they eat less. Again, super simplified, but that is the overall strategy. And the consistency part here comes very often through the lifestyle choices. So if we take care of our sleep, of stress management, of our jobs, of our personal relationships, all of these lifestyle factors then influence our ability to be consistent. With that being said, let's have a very abstract conversation about how we view the world. So we all have our frame. It's our perspective, how we look into the world. And when we have a goal, we have a starting point and our goal, eat better consistently. And through our frame and through our goal, everything that is in our worldview becomes either a tool, an obstacle, or something neutral. And I know this is right now abstract and kind of weird, but I want to help you understand that by choosing a goal and by choosing the frame, we can look at the data that comes from a client in different ways. It can be a tool, it can be an obstacle, or it can be something neutral. Let me give you a very specific example of how you're doing this every single day. What you're seeing here is a chair, but you're not really seeing a chair. You see an opportunity to put on your clothes when you have a jacket and you have no idea where to put it. You see an opportunity to sit on when you're in a theater, or if you need something to put your feet on, if you want to do push-ups or dips, then you have a training tool. So the way you look at the world, your frame and your goal decides what you have. And if you want to train in your living room when you're at home and there are lots of chairs, chairs are suddenly an obstacle and a training tool at the same time. So this is how we can conceptualize the way we are thinking when we are creating a personal nutrition program. It is our perspective into the world and the goal that we have that determines if something is helpful, it is not helpful, or it's just neutral, it has no value to us. And we're starting here from a very big, wide perspective. So right now, we are basically know nothing about our clients. So we are generally just looking at the overall strategy. And with time, we're getting more focused and more focused and more focused until we are at the point of a specific action. This is how I want you to think about this video and also about the process itself. We start wide when we have very little information, and the more data that we collect, the more specific we can get. And here's another thing that makes creating a coaching program difficult, because we have to have some kind of mental map. So the way how we want to process and how we want to reach a goal, it has to be in our mind already. And from there, we can adjust and adapt. And what we very often need is an imagination of how are things tools for us and how can we use them, and how are things obstacle to us and how can we overcome them. And it's very often it's a game of moving parts that we have to realign and see how can we create a good way towards the goal. That is what very often is the difficulty of creating coaching program, is that very often we have to deal with these moving parts and we have to imagine how things could look like. Let's look at an example of how a mental map like this could look like. So here is how eating better consistently could be broken down into smaller steps. And this is something that I learned from precision nutrition, that are incredibly at breaking big projects small into very specific small details. So eating better consistently could look like as, first, why and how are we eating? This is, I'm eating because I'm bored and I'm eating in front of the TV and I'm stuffing my face instead of being calm, being collected, sitting at a table and having a meal without distraction. Then we have what and how much are we eating? So am I eating Ben and Jerry's all day long? Or am I choosing lean proteins and lots of vegetables? Do we have a progression from the food choices? So starting from Ben and Jerry's, we may be eating something just sweet but baked, so it's not immediately melting, to maybe eating some bread, to maybe eating whole grains. We have an approach to sustainable meal plans. And what I mean by that is, it's not plan every meal, but we have an idea of what is my next meal, and I'm prepared for that. And that is part of the consistency part already. We have the eat better part done, and now we are working on the consistency. And then topics like stress resilience, stress management are super important. So we don't have these issues of, oh, I need to stuff my face after a terrible day, because I'm more stress resilient and I don't need food as much to calm myself down. And also, sleep quality and quantity are some next actions to improve your training, improve your progress, to improve your mental calmness and stability, so that you can deal better with unexpected issues, with hunger, with cravings, and so on and so on. So the overall strategy of eat better consistently can be broken down, for example, in these 7 steps. Depending on your specific client or your specific clients, this approach can look differently. You can reprioritize, reorder, you can add something and remove something. The idea is when you're in contact with a client, you start to map out this mental map. And if you have a certain type of client that you're working very often with, that's awesome. Then you have this approach already in your head, or you develop it. If you're working with a new client, you have to take more effort in mapping out your strategy. So the important part is this process will get easier with experience and by working with more people that are similar. So for example, if you have a specific niche like busy dads wanting to add an inch to their arm, then you already have a good idea of what are the specific steps they need to take. And if you want to create a group coaching program or a video course, for example, it's the same idea. You're thinking about your busy dad who wants to add an inch to his arm, and then you're thinking about the process. What is the first step they need to take? What's the second step, the third step, and so on and so on and so on. Now that we have a plan and we have broken it down into specific steps, now it comes the difficult part of, okay, what is a tool and what is an obstacle? How can we distinguish these two? And again, here the key is our frame and our perspective on the goal. The way we look at things and the way we look at our goal decides if something is neutral, a tool, or an obstacle. The problem sometimes here is it takes experience to understand what is the way I want to look at things. And it takes also experience to reframe your perspective to see something that is potentially a difficult thing, how it is actually a benefit. For example, if we have someone who is very busy, this can be a huge obstacle because you have struggled to find time. On the other hand, you can look at it as they know how to manage their time and they are consistent with that. So this I am very busy can be reframed in the perspective of our goal as, oh, you're a time management ninja and you absolutely know how to make time for something. So if you're starting out right now or haven't really thought about this yet, be patient and be kind with yourself. This perspective and this looking at new data through the perspective of your goal is something that takes time and experience. Here are some general questions that you can use to identify generally how something could be an obstacle. First, you need clarity on what their goal is and why they want to achieve that goal. The why is important because it gives you context. It helps you understand the goal better. Then you can look at what have they already changed and what do they want to change. So this gives you already not just the goal, but also a perspective. Where are they heading? And then come questions like, why haven't they already achieved it? And this is critical because they probably have tried to reach their goal on their own. So asking this question, for example, in an initial conversation is critical because they can tell you so much about what they've already tried. And there's also the perspective of looking into the future. What could hold them back? Maybe there are holidays coming up or important family events, and that could ruin their progress or at least become an obstacle in eating better. And in this way, by just having these questions in mind, you can get a perspective of, okay, where are potential bumps in the road? On the other hand, how can you decide what is a tool? The same questions essentially apply. What is their goal? Why is this goal important to them? And what have they already changed or what do they want to change? And then you can look at what has made success possible in the past. So they may have lost a lot of weight in the past. So you can explore that. What has been the key there? And at the same time, you can then explore, okay, why haven't you kept the weight off? And the other part is, what could aid them in reaching their goals? This is when you look at their kitchen, their support network, their skills, their strengths, their past experiences, and see, oh, they have all of this, and we can use that. And we are again at this imagine step, in this imagine process of how you place certain steps and certain tools so they progress from one step to the next, and how you use certain tools to overcome or circumvent certain obstacles. And I personally think something super important is creating living lists with your clients. And by living lists, I mean something that's not complete and it never ends. It's something that you always update. And the idea is write down everything, every strength, every resource, every past success that you already have, because it helps give you clarity on what they already have, and you always can reconnect and connect new ideas and use some of the resources you may not be aware of anymore. At the same time, you can make a list of all the potential roadblocks and all the potential obstacles to the success, and then rank them. Oh, being super busy is very difficult to train 7 days a week. And by ranking them, you get a good idea of what is the worst obstacle, what is the biggest problem, but also what is the biggest problem that's the easiest you can overcome. Eating a chocolate muffin every morning is a huge roadblock to success because of all the calories. And an easy solution would be, let's make some overnight oats. They're sweet, they can even be a little bit chocolatey, but they are well prepared. You can add a little bit of protein powder, for example, and you have a much better solution. It's a big obstacle that can be solved with a very simple solution. This is where assessments come into play, because the client's life is so complex, and you can ask the same questions in every domain. Is there the social support, it's the kitchen equipment, the training experience, the nutrition experience, stress management, sleep, and so on and so on and so on. That's why often initial assessments are so long, because you're trying to build a story of how a client's life looks like and how they are dealing with obstacles. Let's take a look at where we are in the coaching process. So step 0, if you want to, is the sales conversation. This is where you already learn a lot about the client, what they want to achieve, what is important to them, what is maybe an obstacle for them. Then you give them the intake questionnaire, maybe some additional forms. The details doesn't matter so much here. So you have the sales conversation, you already have an idea of how you could help them. Then you have the assessment and the gathering process. that we have. That's the intake question, and there are some forms like a food journal. And we are at the edge, at the outer edge of understand and explore. This is the perspective that I shared in the beginning. We have a frame, how we look at the world, and we have a goal. And now we are looking at all the data that we have gathered to understand the client's life, to potentially ask additional questions to clarify. So we get an idea, what is their goal, what are the obstacles, what are the tools that we can use. I know there's a lot more to that, like what are the specific steps? And you can find in the description below checklists for the sales conversation, the checklist for the first meeting, and also a checklist for every ongoing meeting. So you can check it out in the description below. Here's how the checklist looks like. So we have a part of before the meeting. How can you prepare for the meeting? And these are steps like sending them the questionnaire and sending them the questionnaire and any legal stuff. But it's also how do I want to be in the conversation? Am I calm? Am I curious? Am I welcoming? These are these steps. Then we have this high part where you build the conversation and where you identify the goal of the session. From there, you move into the assessment. So you go over the assessment, you probably have looked at it, you have already thought about it. So you can ask clarifying questions. You can get their perspective on what are the roadblocks, what are their strengths, and so on and so on. And the complete checklist is in the description below. Now we are ready for the next step, strategize and plan. The idea is let's move from a big abstract perspective to a specific next action. We have gathered all the information, informal from conversation and formal through the assessments. And it's time to look, how can we mold and change our initial plan in a way that it works for the client. And again, you see myself doing this and looking in this direction. It's again an imaginary process. You have to adjust and play with all the elements so you can create something that works. And this is something that takes time. It's not super easy to readjust and play with all these steps. You have a lot of data already. You have the sales conversation, you have the intake questionnaire, the assessments, the informal assessment, you ask clarifying questions. But before you actually move on, there's one simple thing I want you to make sure that I want you to consider. If you can make a solid coaching decision, if you understand why you're making this decision, then you don't need any additional input. If you need some information about a situation or an approach or whatever it is in the client's life to make a decision, that's your gut instinct, your feeling that tells you, oh, I need to gather some more information. So please make sure when you're going through the assessment and through the conversation and through your notes and you're mapping out your plan, if you have the feeling, oh, I cannot make a decision because I don't know about this or that, that is your feeling of, oh, I need more information. And I'm curious, let me know in the comments, do you want to see a real example, how I go through a real intake questionnaire with a little case study around and tell you what I see and how I think about these topics? Let me know if you want to see this in the comments. We have our big plan, and that is a very general plan. Now we have to make sure that this plan works for the client. And I have a simple rule of thumb here. We need to be specific about the next 3 steps. The rest can be adjusted as necessary. And the 3 first steps give you a clear direction. There's a progression and you're working from one step to the next. And ideally, you start with the largest roadblock that can be removed with the smallest change. So for example, we have the muffin idea. If your client eats a muffin every day in the morning, how about creating some overnight oats instead? If your client eats a lot of food and always feels stuffed, how about just eating 3/3 of the plate, or eating slowly, or watching your hunger cues and only eat until you're just satisfied? So this is the rule of thumb. You don't have to map out every single step because there's so much that can change. But the next 3 steps, they have to be rather clear so you know how you're going to progress from this step to the next. And again, I hope I make this as clear as possible. Steering dynamically is the key. Every time your client tells you something, every time you notice that your client is not doing something or struggles with a specific thing or actually really excels at a specific thing, you get more data and you have to re-evaluate through your frame and in the perspective of your goal. Is this something neutral? Is this a tool that I can use, or is this a new obstacle? That's why the rule of thumb with the 3 next steps is so important, because when you start with a step, it changes a lot in the client's lives. So if they start to eat slowly, for example, there might 100 things that pop up for them. Or maybe it's nothing, or just a few things. But the key idea is every time you do something, you get new feedback. Like, is eating slowly for them easy or not? Is it already making progress for them? Are they already losing weight or not? So that's important to understand. Your plan starts, but it never ends. It's always adjusting, it's always fluid. So what are some of the steps that you can, what are some of the questions, or what is the thought process behind identifying a next step? And I like to start with, what do they want to change? Because if they want to change something, they're far more likely to do it. Big surprise. Maybe they've already started to change something. So, for example, clients already started with eating fewer carbs. So then you can progress with that. Maybe improving their food choices, maybe improve their consistency, whatever it is, you can go with that direction. Then also, what has the biggest impact and what would be the easiest to solve? That comes back to eating a muffin every morning and changing that with overnight oats. Then we also have to consider, what can they do? What do they have? Like, prepping meals for the whole day is a good idea, but if they have no containers, that's difficult. Maybe they're not even able to cook yet. So these are the things we have to consider when we identify the next step. And there's also the part of what comes first. So if you want your clients to make, for example, overnight oats, they first have to understand what are overnight oats. Maybe they first have to understand what are oats. So these are some of the questions we have to identify. And some of these problems just take time and experience to understand, oh, there is something that I have to consider first. So again, understand this is fluid, new information pops up and can change the plan. And it also takes experience to work through this process really well. Here are some practical tips that I like to use and that I also added to the checklist that you can download in the description below. Start with the goal at the top of a sheet of paper. And below that, you write down why they want to achieve. So you always have the context. And then you think about the next 3 targets that you want them to reach. For example, they understand why they're eating. They understand what they're eating and how much they're eating, for example. And your perspective is always, can I overcome a big roadblock, or can I make something very, very easy for them? Both is possible. And when you have the targets, then you move into specific actions. For example, if we're looking at how much they're eating, we could start with eat until satisfied. or eat slowly and mindfully without distraction. So you're not turning on the TV every time you eat. You can practice eat only when you're physically hungry. So if you're stressed and you want to eat, if you're stressed and you want to reach for something sweet, find another solution for that. Or you can focus on something like eat lean protein, fruits and vegetables, make smart carb choices, and so on and so on. It's understanding how will you measure progress. And of course, how you will measure progress is determined by your goal and how you want to view progress. So some common ways of measuring progress: you measure weight loss or weight gain, pictures, consistency, weights on the bar, how pumped they feel, the energy, the confidence they have gained. So you have your overall goal and your overall approach. Now you're making it more specific for the first 3 steps. Now you're making it even more specific. You're finding out how you will measure the success. And here's something that I see very often with newer coaches. They want to measure everything: sleep, confidence, happiness, gratefulness, pictures, circumstances, body fat, everything. Here's a key idea. Every measurement has to be action-oriented and meaningful. So if you get a measurement and you cannot make a decision based on the measurement that you get, then it's probably not a meaningful and action-oriented measurement. Granted, sometimes not that easy. Scale weight, for example, fluctuates a little bit, but the idea is if you cannot make a decision based on the measurement, then it's not action-oriented, and sometimes it's not meaningful. So if you have a client that wants to feel more confident, focusing very much on their body fat may not be super meaningful for them because they want to feel more confident. It's not that reducing their body fat by 1% immediately boosts their confidence. So in case when you're wondering, fewer measurements are usually better. Not always there's value in having several measurements, but have the tendency to have fewer measurements because you will know when you need a measurement because you cannot make a decision. Now we are at the stage, we have a ref plan, we have identified 3 targets, we know how to measure progress, and now we are at the choose and test phase. And the important part here is we have to discuss this as much as possible with the client. When you're working one-on-one, either online or in person, that's easy. When you're working with groups or video calls, at least give them a couple of options of how to approach something. So they have the ability to adjust to their personal preferences, what works best for them. Explain to them how it will feel, how you will support them, and then ask them, knowing what it takes, do you still want to achieve your goal? Are you ready, willing, and able to follow these steps? And I want to emphasize this. Right now, it's just you. It is your view and your perspective on the goal. But at the moment you're interacting with the client, you get a whole different perspective. They see obstacles differently, they see tools differently, they look at your steps and your specific actions differently. So it's important that you give your client the opportunity to choose the direction and to choose how to approach the problem. I want you to understand that this process overall is a discussion between 2 experts. You're the expert on the strategy. These are the steps we need to take to reach your goal. But the client is the expert on their lives. They know what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what is difficult, what is not difficult. So when you have a plan and they come in and move everything around, can kind of feel frustrating and you can feel defeated. But understand, this process makes your plan more robust against errors. When your client says, this is the client, this is the program that I can work with, that sounds good and reasonable, and I am excited and I feel capable of doing that, you have such a strong program. So gather the information, gather the feedback, and adjust. Be willing to adjust the program you have come up with. Because the more you have your client's input, the better your program will be. And the same, of course, is true if you have a video course or group coaching. You get feedback from your clients, and that informs you how you can adjust your plan maybe in the future, or maybe you're even able to adjust some of the next steps when the feedback happens early on in the process. If you want to know how to structure a coaching session so you can collaborate with your client and have this expert discussion, then check out the video here, and also in the description below, I will link a video on the specific structure of a coaching session, and I also will link a video here and in the description of an example where I have a conversation with a real person, and I also break down in little comments what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So make sure that you check this out so you can nail this personal connection and this personal collaboration. Now your client has chosen a specific step and is testing it. We are at the point of observing and monitoring our clients. And one really helpful tool for that are so-called check-in forms. So these are electronic forms that you can send to your client once a week, for example, so you get an idea of where are they? Are they progressing? Are they struggling? And this is so important because it informs your coaching process as well, and you can come prepared into the next session. So checking in on your client between sessions is a powerful tool, not just for accountability, but also to give you important information about how the program works, and you have time to figure out and problem solve if something is not going well. And I have a video on how to create check-in forms here, and also in the description below, where you can download a working check-in form that you can use immediately with your clients. We identified a plan. We got our clients' feedback on the plan. They choose a specific step. Now they are on their own. They are working towards their goal, implementing the specific step. You're gathering information with your check-in form between sessions, so you also are more informed in the next session. And now we're talking about the evaluation. This part is essentially the question, did it work? What we tried to accomplish, have we been successful? And the key here is outcome-based decision-making. So we have our progress measurements, and we are checking, did they lose weight? Do we see visible changes in the pictures? Have they been consistent? Have their weights been increased? Are they recovering in time? Whatever the specifics are, you will decide, have they been successful or have they not been successful? And based on the data that you collect, you make a decision. So for example, they didn't lose weight. You have a couple of options here. Let's wait a little longer. I have a video on my client hit a weight loss plateau. What should I do? You can find it here and also in the description below. And I talk about the importance of patience, of building up their consistency, building up their action steps to actually see progress. So that's something that I did wrong in the very beginning. I thought just one action step, and if it doesn't work, I change completely the plan. But very often it takes 2, 3, 4 weeks to actually see significant progress, especially when you're looking at weight loss, where you have always these up and downs. So you observe an outcome, like they haven't lost weight, and then you make a decision based on that. You always consider the bigger context, like, oh, it's just been 1 week. so we need more time. Or they have just started with their program and they're not very consistent yet. Or maybe they have been very consistent for a long time, so it's time to maybe reduce their energy intake a little bit more or increase the output. That's the key. When you analyze and evaluate at the end of the first circle, you make a decision based on the outcome that you see. Again, there's a video in the description and also in the cards above. When your client hit a weight loss plateau, what to do. You can check it out there. Now let's zoom out a little bit more. What are we looking at? We have the initial assessment, the information gathering, creating the plan, agreeing on an action plan, testing the plan, measuring progress. Between the next session, we have the check-in form where you gather additional data, where you understand what is going on. And then you have in the next session, the next agreement of what is the next action. And then you test the action. Again, you have the check-in form where you see if it's working, is it not working, you're evaluating, and you're agreeing on the next action, and you're moving forward. And that's the key. With every step, you're agreeing on a new action, you're evaluating, did the last thing work well? And you have an overall strategy of how you want to progress with this client. And again, if you're interested in a checklist on how to have these progress check-ins and what questions to ask, what topics to cover, check out the description below where I have a free progress check-in checklist for you. I also have a progress check-in checklist in the description below that you can download so you know exactly what to do, what questions to ask, and what your next steps are when you meet with your client again. Thank you so much for watching. Here are a couple more videos for you if you want to learn more.